Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is...
Welcome to the world according to GUS, God, Universe, Spirit. I'm your host, Charles Eduardos, where the gospel, little play on words rather than gospel, guides us into living victoriously, living transcendently, living the life that we were all intended to live. And today, as I get a quick little switcheroo here, got to find my controls. My guest today is none other than Jeff Hutchinson, and we're going to eventually get to talking about transcendence and meditation, but I want you to get to know Jeff a little bit more, and we're going to talk with Jeff about a number of things, and we're going to talk about his evolution, how one thing has led to another for him, and it's all moving himself, and not just him, but all of us, toward a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of understanding of who we are, what our potential is, and how we are all unified as one. Jeff, welcome to the world according to GUS.
Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Awesome. Listen, one thing leads to another. I was reading through your bio, and you've been a student and teacher of Transcendental Meditation for over 45 years. Wow. What led you to Transcendental Meditation in the first place?
Well, let me first correct it a little bit. I did become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation, and I have not been teaching it for 45 years, but I did become a teacher. I did teach for a while now, and then moved on to a corporate career. Mm-hmm. It's a good question, though. It was something that in college came to me. I was a sophomore in college as an opportunity, and I went and I learned Transcendental Meditation, and I began to have some experiences that were powerful and led me to feel pretty strongly about pursuing becoming a teacher. Mm-hmm. So as I finished up my college career, I went and I spent 6 months in France and in Vital, Switzerland, training to teach Transcendental Meditation. And that was an experiential experience in the sense that what we were talking about, we were also experiencing internally. We did quite a bit of meditation, along with yoga, along with breath work. And it was structured in a way that we're not just talking about things intellectually. Mm-hmm. Yes, there were videotapes that we watched of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who brought TM to the West. But it was, let's do these practices and you will experience what we're talking about. Mm. With each day, we would do what were called 8 rounds. And a round would begin by doing some yoga, and then doing some breath work, doing meditation, some breath work, and some yoga. So it was a process of going from the grosser activity, which was the yoga, to a little bit subtler activity as you're slowing the body down, getting the mind centered. Yeah. Coming in through breath work and releasing into meditation, which was the subtlest of the activities, and allowing the mind to settle down from that beta consciousness, which is our normal waking consciousness, right. Through the alpha, which is the dream state, and down into theta. And what they've shown with TM is that not only can you settle down into that theta consciousness, but at the same, or brainwave production, but at the same time, there's what are called beta spindles. So that indicates that there's still wakefulness which it is part of how the whole technique of transcendental meditation is described. It's a process of using a sound, internal sound, to keep the mind lively, but undirected. And as it's undirected, what Maharishi continued to say was, there is no thing that is more attractive to the mind than the source of consciousness, that unbounded awareness. And naturally draws the mind down. Yeah. And what happens is you need something to keep the awareness awake.
Yes.
That's what the technique does. It allows the mind to settle and be drawn down to that source of consciousness, yet at the same time, keeping the mind lively and alert. So we would do that, and we would go from the yoga to the breath work, to the meditation, to the breath work, to the yoga. And we were doing that 8 times a day. And what happened was now I'm a real left brain kind of guy, or especially in that portion of my life, very analytical.
Okay.
I mean, I've been a statistician, and the statistician came later, but it was an analytical solution. And the whole scientific method and replicatability.
All right.
But here was an experience of something different.
Yeah.
A movement from outside to inside into a rich world of transcendence. I mean, it's
yes.
Languaging it kind of.
Yeah, you can't.
But, it cheats it.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I totally get that.
And it's a process of coming inward, and they talk about transcendence in terms of the EEGs of what's going on in the brain.
Right.
And what they've seen is that as meditators get to the point of transcending, that they have firing across between the two hemispheres of the brain, across that interconnecting piece, the corpus callosum.
Yeah.
And my experience after 6 months was this incredible balancing between the left brain, which is very analytical, very language-based,
right,
and the right brain, which is much more artistic and intuitive-based.
Right.
So that balancing was happening. And then there were times during that experience where boundaries began to shift. There was a moment in time I remember of looking out my window and experiencing, not thinking about, but directly experiencing the fact that there was no separation between me and the tree that I was looking at out there.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's talked about by yogis, that separation and that boundary becoming permeable and then disappearing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So what it taught me was the reality of, hey, this actually does what it says. It moves you towards a different awareness.
Yes.
And it's not thinking about a different awareness or a different thought set. It is experiencing.
Wow.
And that experience is more concrete, more real than the chair that I'm sitting on.
Yeah.
The computer that I'm talking through.
Yes. Yeah.
And that level of reality, it's interesting if you've read, Evan Alexander wrote a book called Proof of Heaven. And he had an experience that was driven by illness that threw him into a coma. And he experienced things that he had never experienced before that were unexplainable to him, because he was a neurosurgeon. And he looked at all the different neurological tests that they had performed to see what was going on with his brain during the time he was in a coma for 7 days. And they predicted that at best he would come out a vegetable.
Yeah.
And he talks about that kind of experience where you cross over into a reality that you don't normally experience.
Right.
And part of the motivation for me to go and become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation was because of an experience like that.
Okay.
It very much paralleled with what people call the near-death experience.
Yeah.
And part of the byproduct of that was loss of fear of death.
Yeah.
And he talked about his experience in terms of there is a reality that is so concrete, that is more concrete than the physical world that you're in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that experience has motivated me since the time it occurred, and that was 45 years ago.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about there is actually the transformation. That is, our life becomes transformed, and it is transformation generally does not happen by intellectual knowledge or anything. It happens by an experience. Something happens. Yeah, for me, I was shot and died on the operating table during the first of what eventually turned out to be 4 or 5 operations. So I totally get that. I'm sitting here with goosebumps all over my body listening to you. So go ahead.
It's interesting. Jill Bolte Taylor, a neuroanatomist, talks about her experience also.
Yes, that was a stroke, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And her book is My Stroke of Insight.
Right. Yes. Very good book.
She talks about that shift between the left brain that has all the memory, all the linguistics, all the labels, all the emotional framework. She literally, the boundaries between her body and the air around her disappeared.
Yes. As
her left brain began to shut down.
Right.
And as she began to shift into this more right brain consciousness. And she said that the experience was one of nirvana.
Wow.
Again, it's this experience between conceptualization.
Yes.
That left brain linguistic. As a kid, we were given boxes, and those boxes are word boxes. And we put everything in those boxes.
Yep.
And by doing that, we steal the essence of everything that we put in a box.
So true.
I can remember in my apartment, there was this bird that would come to the bird feeder, and I hadn't seen it before. I didn't know what it was called, what the name of it was. But I'd notice it every time it came, and it had this purple sheen to it with these flecks of, it looked like gold, and it just captured me every time it came. So I got out my bird book and I looked at it, and I found it.
Okay.
And it was a starling, and the description was garbage bird. And I'm thinking, well, next time it came, I looked at it and I didn't see it anymore, Charles.
Wow. Yeah.
I had the label in my head.
Yes.
The label came into my head, and I think that's what we do with kids. And in the educational system is just so much in terms of let's strengthen that ability to categorize.
Yes, exactly right.
That ability to put things into an organized left brain perspective.
Right.
And we lose much of what could be gained through the arts.
Right. Yeah.
Much more intuitive, much more feeling, much more experiential point of view.
Which is in my work in coaching and neurolinguistics, one of my favorite patterns is the what if pattern. What if you didn't have that presupposition? What if you didn't know what you know about this? What if you were to see this situation, this person, whatever, like you've never, ever seen this person or this situation before? This is totally fresh and brand new.
Well, what you're talking about is seeing through the eyes of innocence of a child.
Yeah.
Where one is completely present in the moment.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Where your perception is not being colored by all the expectations of the future
Yes.
or the experiences of the past. And I use both future and past words as not necessarily the reality that we all experience. I think,
Right. Mm-hmm.
but there's got to be a balance, because we need that left brain functioning
Yes.
in order to exist in the world.
But I forget who it was that said, though, it's become where the left brain, the left side, feels as though it's the boss, but it is actually servant to
Yes.
the
Yeah.
right.
I think that comes from the Einstein quote that we talked about before.
Okay.
And that is the intuitive mind is a sacred gift.
Mm,
The rational mind is a faithful servant.
yeah.
We have created a society that has forgotten the gift and honors the servant,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or honors the
Yeah.
other way around. But it is,
Right.
we have forgotten the gift of the intuition,
Yeah.
and
It's
we're honoring the servant of the rational mind.
right. Yeah. We've got things inverted.
Yeah.
What is the expression? The world upside down. We're not perceiving from um, the true reality. I find it just so fascinating through all the science that we have and everything. Nobody has yet been able to open up a human body and find consciousness. You can't open the brain and find we see the results and the function of, but consciousness is
Yeah.
ungraspable, so to speak.
Well, it's so much bigger than
Yeah.
the container that we're riding around in right now.
Yeah, exactly. And the appreciation of the fact that it does, as you talked about, experiencing that tree, because you had expanded to a
Absolutely.
level of consciousness beyond the body.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. So, from the Transcendental Meditation, and thank you for clarifying all of that. As I'm reading this, I knew that you hadn't been teaching for 45 years, but your journey with Transcendental Meditation began 45 years ago, and you ended up becoming a teacher and a certified teacher. You're a certified yoga teacher as well. So I look at this list of things. Did that certification in yoga teaching emerge as it seems natural that it would emerge out of the experience of learning transcendental meditation and that whole process, from the yoga to the breath work to the actual meditation? So it naturally fits.
Yeah, it very much naturally fits. And if you look at Patanjali's 8 paths of yoga, and yoga here not meaning just the postures that we get ourselves into,
Right.
meaning union.
Yeah. Right.
Into union with your divine source.
Yes.
It talks about 3 of those paths are pranayama, which is the breath work,
Mm-hmm.
asanas, which are the yoga postures, and
Yeah.
meditation.
Yeah.
And in that training course to become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation, we were basically using those 3 paths to bring our awareness and to expand our awareness and bring our awareness to a place of transcendence and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I still practice TM today.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a powerful technique.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that as you work with the postures, the yoga postures, you begin to help the body be in balance, because the body is a vehicle
Mm-hmm.
to experience higher states of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to take care of it.
Yes.
And what happens in our society today is we're focusing on all these experiences that one can have, and let's go do this, let's go do that. But if that doesn't support the health of the body,
Yeah.
it lowers the awareness.
Yeah.
You become less conscious.
Wow.
So yoga is a process of keeping the body temple working.
Yeah.
Keeping it in a position where it can support the experience of higher levels of consciousness.
Now, what you said is one of those things too that transcends, well, it's trans religious tradition. It pretty much in every religious tradition, from shamanic to Hinduism. Buddhism, for me, is technically not so much a religion because there is no deity at all.
Right.
But which is why I'm Zen Luthocostal. But anyway, the whole idea of the body as a temple, even in
Yes.
Christianity, don't you know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit? It's something that we kind of get up here, but when it comes to the actual experiential living out of that,
Yeah.
that truth,
You've got to live that.
yeah,
I mean, you can choose not to. You always are a choice.
always, yeah,
But in that choice, if you choose not to treat the body properly, you're choosing to move the consciousness away from the higher level of development that we are all here for.
exactly,
I mean, when I look at why am I here,
yeah,
I'm here to evolve. I'm
okay,
here to experience higher levels of consciousness. I'm here to expand my awareness, to become more inclusive of everything that I experience, to become powerfully entrenched in the present moment, or
oh my,
recognizing that I am in the present moment, because
yeah,
you can't really ever leave it,
yeah,
but
right, exactly,
come to the awareness that that's
right,
where I am. And keeping the body at a place where it is refined,
yeah,
where you can
yeah,
experience those higher states is so important. I remember after coming back, uh, part of that 6-month training class was a physical transformation. I
mm.
lost 55 pounds during it.
Wow,
I stopped smoking. I smoked 3.5 packs of Pall Malls a day in college.
wow,
I ended up I'd go to the library every day and do all my studies, and then go down with my buddies, and we'd have a couple pitchers of beer. So,
sure,
I was bigger than I should have been.
okay,
As I came into that experience of being in this meditative process, the food shifted. I mean, I
mm-hmm.
wasn't eating burgers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was in an environment where they gave you clean vegetarian food.
And did you notice that that was something that emerged within you, that your desire even for the type of food you ate shifted, right?
Well, at first, it's just a matter of this is what they're serving.
I got you. Okay. Okay. All right.
Immediately, everything else dropped away. My focus was, why am I here?
Right.
Do my rounds,
Mm-hmm.
get to the lectures where we're watching videotapes of Maharishi or experiencing him in person,
Okay.
and just experiencing that
Okay.
as it came.
Okay. I got you.
What happened was an incredible shift in the subtlety of my body.
Okay.
When I came, it was very dense,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to language it.
Yes.
But there was this shift where my body became much more vibrationally subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came out after 6 months of doing all these rounds, eating food that was very clean,
Mm-hmm.
not subjecting my body to nicotine and alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
I felt ethereal,
Mm-hmm.
almost as if I was floating across
Yeah.
the town.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a noticeable shift.
Yes.
It was irrefutable in my own mind.
Yeah.
So that experience lets me know that you can move towards subtlety,
Yes.
but you need to do the practices that help you keep the body refined or refine the body more. You need
Exactly.
to pay attention to what you expose the body to.
Yes.
And the more you do that, the more there is a tendency to automatically desire it.
Okay. Yeah.
Your food patterns shift
Shift. Right. Right.
automatically.
Right. Right.
What you want to expose yourself to
Yeah.
shifts automatically.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may well be that the people that you interface with shift
Absolutely.
automatically.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's not like an unwelcome guest.
Right.
It is a very welcome guest.
Right.
It is because this feeling of greater subtlety comes with it a balance and a harmony.
Right. Well, your home frequency, your personal frequency going in was probably a lot lower, and as your frequency shifts, that even is going to your energetic pattern, your frequency. You're going to start to. It's going to affect what you have taste for, not only in the food that you eat, but in the company that you keep,
Yes.
in the things that you tend to feed your brain, in the reading that you do. Everything is going to
It is
ascend.
all, yeah, it's all encompassing. And it's interesting
Yeah.
that you would language it in that way, because I do experience a vibrational shift. When I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
there is a vibrational hum that is there every day.
Oh my God. Are you my younger long lost brother? This is so
And
weird.
if I choose to, anytime throughout the day,
Yeah.
I can bring the awareness in and feel that vibration.
Yes. Wow.
And I know that in my mind, I don't question that has evolved over time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that it is part of what my vibrational rate has shifted into,
Mm-hmm.
where it is a noticeable vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you interviewed my fiance, Jerry Fathauer. Jerry notices it. And if I hold her hand, sometimes she notices that there's this tingling that comes through it.
Mm, yeah.
And it's also manifested in terms of my Reiki practice too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feeling that vibrational increase
Yes.
through the palms of my hand, even as I talk about Reiki. I mean, as you and I are speaking right now, my hands are going nuts.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, but it's all good.
Yes.
It's all good. And it's all can be experienced by each and every one of us.
Yes.
This is not something that is just for the few kind of thing. And
Exactly.
there are many paths into the same center core.
Yeah. Yeah.
That bring people into higher levels of awareness, higher vibrational levels.
Yeah.
That have experienced that shift in what they want to expose themselves to. And in doing so, it's kind of self-reinforcing.
Jeff, I have to, I want to break in here too, and I want to back up to what you just said, because I think, particularly for the audience, we need to allow this, that what Jeff just said, allow this to wash over you and embody it, and know, just claim this truth for yourself. One of the things that I love about this gentleman right now, what he said, he says, I'm no different from anyone else. I'm not special. I am not above or below or any of that of anyone else. And so many times you have people, as much as I hate to say it, in the healing practices and spiritual work, that do, be it overtly or subtly, set themselves up as being higher or better or particularly gifted. What Jeff is talking about and sharing here, you can do as well. You have the capability, you have everything within you that you need. What may be lacking is the same thing that Jeff was lacking when he first started out. So what did he do? He went in and he studied. He found places to learn and to grow and to develop. And then understanding the reciprocity of the universe, he has now turned around and is sharing and pouring out all that he has received in. It's a matter of getting into the flow of the universe and taking in as well as giving back out and letting that flow. Don't ever let anyone cause you to think or feel or believe that you are less than anyone else. Every one of you is absolutely amazing, more amazing than maybe you have ever been able to fathom.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a quote in Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi that his guru at one point says that everyone, every soul,
Yeah,
is a spiritual dynamo.
yeah, yeah.
And we are.
Yep.
Each and every
Created.
one of us.
And created in the image and likeness of God is, again, one of those things that is that transcends all levels of faith. And it's interesting that one of the early church fathers, Origen, got in trouble for saying that God became man in the person of Jesus Christ in order that man could become God. Well, in a very real sense, when we look at my children, take on qualities of me. I'm their father, and they take on my qualities. If God is ultimate creator of all things, then we are God's children, although there are a couple of religions that don't quite embrace that. But from at least the Christian perspective, why wouldn't we be? And the truth of the matter is, I find so many similarities and parallels in Hinduism. That are just amazing. But everyone has that potential.
Yeah.
But we got to stop thinking of ourselves as the limited, this vehicle.
Well, yeah, and we need to stop having tribal thinking as well.
Exactly right.
I mean, it is about spirituality.
Exactly.
And spirituality and religion can be very different things.
Very different. Yes.
And spirituality transcends, I believe, all religions, because it is at the core of all religions. Yeah. And many have used their specific religions to their spiritual path.
Right, right.
But there are other ways that have been known for millennium.
Yes.
In order to be able to come more powerfully into your true spiritual nature.
Yes.
And, when I say true spiritual nature, people may think that, oh, he's holding some concept up there. It's personal.
Exactly.
Everybody's experience is different. I was talking with a guru who I believe to be enlightened, if not very highly advanced. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I said, well, isn't everybody's experience of awakening, enlightenment the same? And he said, no, everybody's experience is different.
Absolutely.
So it is your path, and everybody's responsibility for their own path lies with their own choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The gifts that come are just so tremendous. I mean, when Christ said, this and greater things shall you do.
Yes.
I take that very literally, because he is a master teacher.
Yes.
Whatever religious framework you put in him, he is revered by all religions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the unity consciousness that he personified.
Yeah.
Was unquestionable.
Absolutely. I love Gandhi's quote. He says, Christ I love is Christians that I can't quite get along with. and it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Jeff, with that tribal mentality and everything.
Yeah. Well, and that that tendency, that temptation to try to elevate oneself at the expense of
About
others, it is not spiritual.
right.
And
Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Hell is the others."
absolutely, we're all riding the same bus here, and
That's exactly
we
right.
get serendipitous reminders of that are particular to our own specific life circumstances
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Mm-hmm.
And are we awake enough to hear them?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Neil Donald Walsh talks about that a lot in his
Yeah.
conversations with God.
With God, yeah.
And it is about being awake to the messages that you're getting
Exactly.
and recognizing that, wait a minute, this may be not just the random rumblings of my head.
Right.
It may actually be a communication, an offering,
Yeah.
an opportunity to lead you to the next higher level of
Right.
awareness.
Right. Right. Right.
And that gets into a whole different field.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Well, when you, and this is where I think it just kind of spooks people sometimes, because when you get into the whole idea of unitive consciousness or non-dual consciousness, it freaks people out from the standpoint of, so in other words, you're saying you are God. And at the deepest level, and interestingly enough, even Richard Rohr and Merton and some of the contemplative Christians agreed with that and were on that same page. At the deepest level of, there is the I am
Yes.
in me, and it's connecting to that I am.
Yes.
And folks are waiting. I am what? My identity, our identity gets stuck on, I am Charles Eduardo's. I am husband. I am father. I am pastor. I am coach. All these labels.
The linguistic boxes that you put.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's your ego.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the definition of who you are. But as you get further along in the practices, what you begin to experience is that you know who you are less and less.
Yeah.
Because who you are is no longer defined by,
exactly.
I am Jeff Hutchinson, the Transcendental Meditation teacher, the yoga teacher, the statistician, the father, whatever set of labels, the econometrician, all those linguistic boxes are places you could put me, but they're not who I am. I'm so much more than that. And we all are. Each and every one of us are so much more than that.
Exactly.
It's like the fish that's in the water that doesn't know it's in the water.
Right.
We are in the water.
In the water, yeah.
That water is unbounded.
Right. Those labels are our human doings, not our human.
Absolutely.
Not the being.
Not the being. And that's the differentiation between doing and being.
Yeah.
Both have their place.
Right.
But you want to bring more of that being.
Being, yes.
Into your daily life. Yes. And that's again where, and we were talking before we went on the record about what happens when you take the mind and you use a technique like Transcendental Meditation to go from that beta level consciousness, which is waking, through alpha, which is more the dreaming consciousness or daydreaming, down into theta, which is a deep rest, yet you're still awake. And then what happens when you transcend? It's like you're connecting that source of creative intelligence.
Right.
And as you do that, you're building a neural net.
Right. Exactly.
And it sounds like big words, but all it is you're making a path.
Yeah. Right. That's
it's a neurological path. I mean, the phrase is neuroplasticity.
Right.
That's the ability to change the neural connections in your brain.
Exactly. And we have the ability to do that. Neurons that wire together, fire together.
Other way around. The neurons that fire together, wire together.
Wire together, right. And vice versa.
Yes.
So when we consciously create that, this is where we want. This is what we do a lot of times in hypnosis as well, taking people to that level of heightened awareness where you can begin to create some of the new patterns of thinking and doing, and even just being. So
it makes getting back to that place, accessing that source of creative intelligence easier, because you know the path.
Right.
If you walk the same path every day,
right.
And if it's TM, you know, generally they talk about doing it twice a day. That's like walking to school and walking home, kind of. You know the path.
Yeah, right.
And you could do it with your eyes closed.
Right.
So eventually it gets to the point where that neural net, that physiologically connection between the neurons is so powerful that one can close their eyes and very quickly experience themselves settling down. Now, with something like Transcendental Meditation, and I suspect with many of the other techniques also, as you begin to settle down, if there is stress in the body, that stress is released. And how we experience that is we experience thoughts coming up.
Yeah.
So some people think, oh, well, wait a minute. You know, I sat down to meditate and I got a bunch of thoughts that wasn't successful. No, that's not it at all. You're clearing out all the stuff that's in the body, and the body retains a lot of stress in it.
Yes.
So sometimes people need to have a broader understanding of how does the practice work.
Right.
They make assumptions based on the fact that, oh, I had a bunch of thoughts during my meditation. Well, that's not bad. It means you settle down enough to be able to shake loose some of those knots of stress that were in the body.
Right.
Or they may fall asleep in meditation.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that either.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's the body taking what it needs.
Right.
So it is a path. It is a process of building the path and cleansing the vehicle, the body, that supports that awareness.
Right.
And it's choice.
Yes.
It's absolute. You can choose to do it every day, or you can choose not to do it.
And Jeff, you need to say that again, because I think, and you know, talk me down if I'm wrong on this, but I think this is one of the most unappreciated powers that we have, the power to choose. So many times people think they have no choice. We are always in a position, we're always at choice.
Yes.
And it may be subtle and we may not recognize it, but there is always a choice that can be made, even when it comes down to emotions. Simple techniques of give yourself 90 seconds to feel fully that emotion.
Well, and part of it is based on how much balance have you achieved. And if you continue to do yoga on a regular basis and meditation on a regular basis, and I haven't even gotten into the powers of breath work, which are very powerful, what you will find is in those situations that are stressful, you're much more probable to have a gap, a moment at which you become consciously aware that you're a choice in terms of what do you do in response to what you just experienced.
I love the gap.
That 90 seconds that you're talking about, time and again, I've heard it said that emotions last 90 seconds.
Right.
Because the emotions are the body's physiological reaction to what your thoughts are. Yes. I mean, you can create all sorts of things in the body just by the thoughts that you put in your head.
Exactly.
And if you allow that 90 seconds to occur, the power of that emotion begins to subside. And
dissipates, yes.
Yes, it dissipates, and you recognize that you have a gap in which, instead of automatically responding, you can come into choice.
Right.
And I can't, and you know, I surely can't say I always do that.
Thank you for your honesty.
I mean, there are times when it's just a reaction, but there's more capability to experience that gap, to experience that I'm a choice here.
Yes.
And what do I choose to do?
Right, right.
And sometimes I need to remind myself of that, because, or
Absolutely.
go back and apologize and say, hey, you know, I just reacted, and that's not my normal experience anymore. I usually have a gap, but we are a choice.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not victims.
Right, right.
And it can get into the larger framework of, why am I here experiencing what I'm experiencing in this lifetime?
Right.
And that's a whole different subject.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you open up the box there.
Yeah, that's a whole different. And my personal belief is that I'm here for a reason, and that my experience with my family, what I was born into, my experiences that led from that, are opportunities.
Yeah, yeah.
Opportunities to do a level of development, a level of growth that I may not have experienced. And then you get into the question of, well, how many times have you been here, kind of thing.
Well, you've been here. You've been here forever. As long as you've been here, always.
Yes, you've never not been here.
Yeah, exactly.
That gets into the unity consciousness and the concept of time.
Yeah.
And how it is really, and this one I've just struggled with for so many years. And Ken Wilber does a great job in his book called No Boundaries in Chapter 5, talking about the lack of existence of time as we conceptualize it.
It's a mental construct.
It's a mental construct, and beginning to really experientially come into a space where more and more I see and feel that time as being an eternal moment.
Yeah. That
I have been part of and will be, but will be talks about future. I mean, there is no future, there is no past, there's just the current, the moment. And we can think about, or worry about, usually it's worry about, what's going to come.
Right.
But those are thoughts in the current moment.
Right.
Or we can remember what has happened in the past, but that remembering is just
in the present moment,
in the current moment.
Yeah. It's all.
Never get away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a tough concept for many of us to wrestle with, and I've wrestled with it for years. But Ken Wilber's section and his chapter 5 was helpful.
Yeah. Well, and just learning to allow things to be as they are. It's I have a kind of a, for lack of a better terminology, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this, with the expression, it is what it is.
Yes.
And the reason that I have the love-hate relationship is the profundity of that is lost. Okay. Because it is exactly what it is. Now, and what it is, again, is my mental construct. I can choose to perceive a situation in a myriad of different ways.
Yeah.
Are my choices serving me? Are my choices serving the higher good?
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
I also have I don't know that I would say love-hate relationship, but when I think of it is what it is, there's on one hand where you see somebody using it kind of as let's blow off this situation by saying it is what it is.
Right.
But if you look at it from the profound perspective, you get away from the left brain conceptualization of what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because the tree falls in the forest whether you're there to observe it or not.
Right.
So for me, when I think of it is what it is, I feel that there is a central truth in all that is occurring.
Exactly.
Whether or not I perceive that truth is a different issue.
Yeah.
So when I say it is what it is, I try to come into harmony, into coherence.
Okay.
With what it truly may be that I may be totally overlooking.
Well, exactly. And that what came to mind for me is in those situations, I ask, okay, am I missing? So what am I missing here?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and there's a real sense that if you push back
yeah,
against what is occurring,
right.
you've created your own box and boundary.
Well, exactly. That's resistance. And
Yes.
I don't want to,
Yes.
why resist what is? That's kind of, that's what is Einstein's definition of insanity,
Yeah. Yeah. And in pushing against, you create your own boundary,
Mm-hmm.
and you lose the essence of what it truly is. But
Right.
if you allow yourself to take that deep breath in of just kind of surrendering to what it is,
Yeah.
you may find that it's something that you didn't think it was at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay expansive, stay open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Jeff, we have just barely scratched the surface here, and I do want to get into more with you about the yoga practice. I do want us to spend some time talking about breath work. That is, I think, just such a powerful area that can be um, profoundly helpful to a lot of people, and it's an easy step. There are so many different things with breath work that people can take advantage of. We want to talk also about your work as a Reiki master, and again, as I said at the top of the show, just how one thing has led to another. But for me, as I look at it, I just see you growing and expanding and touching all the bases. I see, if you will, how GUS, God, Universe, Spirit, is leading you and expanding you for the good of all, really. And
Lots of opportunities.
Some more of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's amazing the tendency that we can have sometimes to limit ourselves. And you're doing. I would invite you and encourage you too. I'm sure you do it from time to time, but take a glance back and celebrate the amazing things that you've been able to accomplish and the lives that you've touched, man. Just, wow, phenomenal. I do want to, there was something here I was looking at. Yeah, longtime explorer of the frontier of consciousness development. You are my brother.
That's what it, from the initial experiences with TM, that immediately became my journey.
Yeah.
And it is the exploration of the development of consciousness. And we're all on that path, whether we know it or not.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely right. How can people, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
I don't have a website up at this point. And I don't know whether it's appropriate to give out my telephone number or not.
Well, you do. How about do you have an email address that you could give out that people can?
Yeah, and it's pretty simple. My first name is spelled Jeff, Jeff. Last name is Hutchinson, Hutchinson, @att.net. And sure, yeah, I'm more than willing to look at your emails and respond, and because we are all walking this path together.
Yeah. I foresee a website in your future.
Well, yeah, Jerry, my fiance, already has a website, and at some point there may be a negotiation there. So we'll have
okay.
I think she's open to it.
Yeah. But you're just doing a phenomenal work. As with Jerry, we talked early on, and I just want to, before Gus and witnesses hear your commitment that at some point we'll be able to get you back and talk more. There's so much more that we need to talk about and share with folks, and we look forward to having it. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, getting to know you personally better for me. And I'm sure that it's been a blessing to some folks, and I'm sure that there's some questions out there that you're going to be getting. If you, we will have Jeff's email listed on the website for the program as well. And then, of course, if you wanted to, if you didn't get it, you can always contact me and I can forward you Jeff's information. But please, 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 hear these things. Listen to the program a couple of times. There's nuggets in here that are just absolutely amazing. And as I said earlier, I was just getting goosies listening to, just you think about some of the experiences in meditation, and my personal meditative practices, one called centering prayer, which is a kenotic, a self-emptying type of, when those thoughts come, just releasing them. And then you hit that point where it's just,
it's fun walking this path together and sharing notes.
It's amazing.
Really
and we can all learn from each other, as Jerry has said. Even with the narrative tradition of the Enneagram, we're all here to learn from each other and to teach each other.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit better as well.
Awesome. Our guest has been Jeff Hutchinson. I'm your host, Charles Eduardos, and you've been listening to The World According to Gus. We'll see you next time.
For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.